Peter Gabriel is an English rock musician, singer, songwriter, producer, label owner, studio owner, and philanthropist. He started his career as the bonkers lead singer of Genesis from 1967, and he left in 1975. And since then, he's pursued a solo career, but it has to be said sporadically. He has promoted world music significantly through the Real World Studio and the Real World label. He has released four self titled albums and four two-letter titled albums, and also an album called Scratch My Back, which is an album of covers, and an album called New Blood, which is an album of orchestral remakes of his own songs. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is a album music by Peter Gabriel, and it's kind of a soundtrack album. I'll come back to that in a second. My background with this album is that I have a copy of it, but I've not listened particularly often. I prefer Peter Gabriel's albums of songs over his soundtrack albums. Um, so, well, as I say, it's kind of a soundtrack. So it started life as a soundtrack to Martin Scorsese's film The Last Temptation of Christ, which was based on a controversial novel. But Peter Gabriel developed it further for several months as an album after the film release. So this isn't exactly what appeared in the film. And it's almost entirely an instrumental exploration of world music or world music fusion. Um, so let's talk about that a bit. It's his first album that's released on his own label. So the first of his albums. I don't know if any other albums were released before this one, but that label was founded in the same year that this was released, which is Real World Records. And Real World Records were hugely influential in terms of raising the popularity of world music. Certainly in the UK, I don't know about anywhere else. And I think part of that it was down to um, the recordings that were made, which were mostly done at Real World Studios, which was Peter Gabriel's own studio, and bringing. So I think a lot of people's experiences of world music before this were field recordings, where the quality isn't necessarily as good. And so the really high quality recordings of world music started being released. But Peter Gabriel did other things to promote world music. One of them was this album, which apparently was very influential in that, and he also started to use world music themes and musicians in his own albums of songs. Um, so this features a huge number of musicians, a whole lot of names that I don't know, a few that I do know. The three that I'm going to highlight here are Yusun Dur, who's pretty famous, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, I might have pronounced that wrong, but I've certainly come across him before, and Bill Cobham, sometimes known as Billy Cobham, who was a jazz drummer who worked with Miles Davis. So there's kind of a range of world music ideas and world fusion. So by fusion, I mean kind of taking world instruments and world melodies and world styles, but then giving it more of a contemporary backing. So often with drums and maybe some synths padding stuff out, which makes this a kind of a fuller sound than some world music kind of in its original form would be. So I would say this is I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's very enjoyable if you like this kind of world music fusion, which I do. It's beautifully recorded. It's great music to work to. It's quite ambient in nature in that it kind of sits in the background and makes these nice sounds. There are a couple of negatives that I'd say is that it's a little bit backgroundy, and maybe I feel like maybe it should have more attention than I tend to give it because it doesn't command that attention quite as much. The other one that I would say is that it's still a little bit on the disjointed side, which is what I feel that soundtrack albums often are. So most albums have got this kind of crafted art to them, and they feel like a, a whole that's kind of designed as an experience to listen to. Certainly, good albums are. And soundtrack albums tend to not have that so much, partly because the arc that they work with is the film arc rather than the album. Anyway, I wouldn't say that these are strong negatives. There's just a couple of things that take the shine off very slightly for me. That's what I think. So, as always, I'd love to know what you think. So please tell me by leaving a comment. And that's it from me for now.